What do you decide? Do you want to truly live or just pass the time? No one wakes up hoping the day will be bad. We all want to have more control over our feelings, build better relationships, and learn to manage anger and anxiety more calmly. But often the opposite happens. We end up stuck, tired, and frustrated with the person we've become. In today's video, we'll talk about 24 habits that drain our energy and weaken our inner strength. Each one is important, but the last one might really surprise you. Stay until the end and find out what it is. Let's get started. Number 1. Perfectionism, the enemy of action. Perfectionism is like that friend who, even after studying for months, still thinks he's not ready to take the test. He wants to know everything before acting, but by waiting too long, he ends up missing opportunities and moving away from his own dreams. This kind of thinking creates an invisible prison, a wall that holds back anyone who wants to move forward. Have you ever left a project on hold because you thought it wasn't good enough? Or spending hours changing small details, feeling like it never gets perfect? Many people confuse perfectionism with dedication, but there is a big difference. It's like a boss who reviews the same report over and over, thinking he's looking for quality, when in reality, he's just afraid of making a mistake. Perfectionism is at its core a form of fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of not being accepted. But the truth is simple: nobody is perfect. Epictetus once said that perfection is impossible because we all make mistakes. It's part of being human. A perfectionist is like a driver who drives so slowly to avoid accidents that he ends up arriving late. Trying to be impeccable seems like a way to protect yourself, but it's what holds you back the most. Procrastination stems precisely from the fear of not being good enough, like an athlete who hesitates before jumping and therefore never jumps. The answer is to start even if you're not ready. Think of a writer who, instead of waiting for the perfect sentence, starts typing whatever comes to mind. It may not come out amazing at first, but the text only gets better because he had the courage to start. Being imperfect is not the same as doing something badly. It means acting with what you have today, while improving it over time. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't expect Plato's ideal world. Value even the smallest progress, because nothing small is useless." That's the message. It's better to take crooked steps than to stand still and wait for the perfect moment. In the end, what matters is trying. Like the salesperson who hears several no's before getting the first yes. The important thing is to keep going, because the done always beats the perfect. So start now, even if you fail. That's how real growth happens. Number 2, believing that shortcuts outweigh the effort. It's easy to fall into the idea that there's a quick fix for everything. We live surrounded by promises of magical solutions, methods that claim to solve anything, from making money to changing your body in a short time. But the truth is simple. Believing that shortcuts are worth more than constant effort is one of the worst habits anyone can have. Shortcuts seem tempting, but they almost never deliver what they promise. Most of the time, they only bring more disappointment and make you waste time. Think about it practically. How many people have you seen trying to learn another language in just a few weeks without really dedicating themselves? Or trying to lose weight in an extreme way without really changing your lifestyle? Without real effort, no results last. Shortcuts are like doors that turn in circles. You enter, turn, and end up in the same place. And the worst part is that they not only hinder the result, but also weaken your mind. Those who always seek the easiest path end up giving up at the first difficulty. Shortcuts don't teach inner strength. They fuel haste. No skill comes from nothing. It is built with time, repetition, and will. If you want to be good at something, you need to commit, study, make mistakes, fall, and get up again. Author Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his book, recalling the 10,000 hours of practice to achieve mastery. The exact number doesn't matter. What matters is understanding that excellence comes with patience and dedication. Today, many people act as if success were an automatic, effortless gift. They want great results without paying the price of learning. They believe they deserve everything, even without having done anything. But as Epictetus said, nothing great comes into being suddenly. It all starts with the patience of those who accept growing step by step. So instead of looking for the shortest path, choose the path that teaches you and changes you. What matters is not what is easy, but what transforms you. If you want to achieve something lasting, you need to become someone who can maintain that result. True victory comes when you learn to love the process, not the shortcut. Number 3. Not knowing how to manage stress. Stress is a part of life. No one escapes it. But when we don't learn to manage it, it becomes a hidden enemy that harms the body, clutters the mind, and erodes relationships. The problem isn't just how much stress we feel, but how we react to it. Often, instead of relieving the burden, people get lost in worry or try to escape their feelings. To begin to better manage stress, it's important to understand that it's a natural response to something that seems difficult or threatening. This means that, more often than not, stress stems more from how we perceive situations than from the facts themselves. Changing your perspective is already a big step toward finding calm. Furthermore, it's important to create small habits that help relieve the pressure of everyday life. Taking deep breaths, taking short breaks, or spending a few minutes in silence can relax your mind in just a few moments. But the key is learning to choose what comes first. Trying to do everything at once is a sure path to burnout. Seneca said that those who try to be everywhere at once end up being nowhere. So ask yourself, what really matters right now? When you define your priorities clearly, your energy is used more wisely, and your mind finds peace even amidst chaos. Number 4. Living with people who look down on you. Being around people who put you down is one of the most harmful things you can do. Every negative word you hear without reacting is like a stone tied to your feet, pulling your self-esteem down, even if slowly and almost invisibly. Maybe you've gotten used to it, thinking it's common, but it's not. It's not okay to let someone diminish your worth. Think about the last time someone made you feel small, incapable, or unimportant. How did you react? Maybe you stayed silent, finding it easier to ignore. But each offensive phrase is like a drop of poison that spreads, affecting your mind and emotions. Living surrounded by this kind of energy isn't just bad. It's a cycle that traps you and makes you doubt yourself. Over time, you begin to believe these words, questioning not only what you do, but who you are. This ends up influencing your decisions, your relationships with others, and even the opportunities you accept or reject in life. When you allow people like this around, you give them the power to decide how you see yourself. And that's dangerous, because only you can define your worth. If this pattern isn't broken, the lies others tell you can become the voices inside your own head. Therefore, it is essential to learn to set limits. This doesn't mean you need to cut all ties at once, but you should be clear about what you accept and what you don't. Talk honestly about how these attitudes affect you. Even though it's difficult, putting your well-being first is the only way to build healthy relationships. Remember, those who try to put others down are actually struggling with their own insecurities. Understanding this strengthens you and reminds you of your true worth. You deserve to be around people who lift you up, not those who push you down. And before we continue, I want to remind you of something important. This video reached you because someone liked it and subscribed to the channel first. Now it's your turn. Do the same and help this message reach more people. Number 5. Consuming information without digesting it. We live in an age of mental abundance and, paradoxically, a scarcity of wisdom. Information is everywhere at our fingertips, yet few truly understand it. It's as if the modern mind has become a stomach that eats without ever digesting. We read, listen, watch, but almost nothing sticks. Data overload has replaced depth. We consume knowledge like we consume entertainment, quick, superficial, disposable. A mind overloaded with information is like a room full of useless objects. There's so much there that there's no room for the essentials. You read about focus, but you don't. You study about calm, but you live in anxiety. You learn about discipline, but you keep procrastinating. Because the problem was never a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of digestion. Stoics warned about this 2,000 years ago. Seneca said, "We should feed ourselves rather than fill ourselves." He compared knowledge to food. Its value lies not in how much is consumed, but in how much the body can assimilate. Information without reflection is like food without nourishment. It fills but does not sustain. Today, we confuse movement with progress. We spend hours jumping from video to video, from book to book, from idea to idea, and we end up believing we're evolving. But growth isn't about accumulating, it's about integrating. What transforms us isn't what enters our minds, but what descends into our hearts and changes the way we live. With each scroll, our attention becomes fragmented a little more. The mind becomes accustomed to short-term stimuli, and silence becomes uncomfortable. We can no longer think without distraction, reflect without checking our phones, listen to an idea without searching for another. We're always chasing more content, but escaping the experience of truly understanding. And this escape comes at a high price. We lose the ability to think deeply. Epictetus taught that learning is useless if it doesn't change the way we live. In other words, knowledge that doesn't translate into action is merely intellectual vanity. It doesn't matter how many books you've read if your life remains the same. Knowing and not applying it is like turning on a flashlight and never pointing it into the dark. To digest what you learn, you need to slow down. It's in silence that knowledge transforms into wisdom. When you pause, reflect, and ask, how does this apply to my life? What was external becomes internal. Reading becomes self-knowledge. Information becomes transformation. Seneca also said that the mind needs breaks, just as the body needs rest. Without breaks, even good things become noise. Therefore, learning to moderate your information consumption is a form of mental hygiene. You don't need to know everything, you need to deeply understand what truly matters. The truly wise man is not the one who reads the most, but the one who understands the best. He prefers a single book that transforms him to 1,000 that distract him. He knows that the mind, like the body, only grows when it digests what it absorbs. So the next time you feel like consuming more content, stop and ask yourself, did what I learned today actually change anything for me? If the answer is no, it's time to digest, not seek more. The silence after learning is as important as the learning itself. It is in this silence that ideas settle, thoughts are organized, and wisdom begins to blossom. Because accumulated knowledge is weight, applied knowledge is power. A mind that learns without reflection becomes confused. A mind that reflects before acting becomes clear. And it is this clarity, not an excess of information, that gives you direction. After all, the truly wise person does not seek to know everything, but to deeply understand the little they choose to learn. Number 6. Take care of yourself. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't pour from an empty cup"? This simple idea shows exactly what self-care is. If you don't take care of yourself, it's like trying to give others something you don't have yourself. Ignoring your own needs is dangerous because it not only affects your health, but also takes away your energy, your joy, and your strength to live. If you've ever felt like you're pushing through the day tired and constantly out of breath, it's quite possible that you're forgetting to take care of yourself. It's like driving a car that's almost out of gas. It might go a little, but eventually it will stop. The body and mind work the same way. When care is lacking, energy runs out, patience disappears, and the desire to do things disappears. This not only affects your work, but also your relationships, and most importantly, your inner peace. Think of your life as a plate full of different foods. If you overdo one and forget the others, the dish will be heavy and nothing will taste good. It's the same with your obligations. When you try to do everything at once, you end up with no time and no enjoyment in anything. Therefore, it is essential to maintain balance, respect your limits, and understand the right time to stop to rest and recharge. Take a close look at your routine. You need breaks that renew your strength. It could be getting a good night's sleep, eating healthily, moving around a bit, or simply spending a few minutes in silence just breathing and calming your mind. These small gestures are like invisible chargers that replenish your energy and leave you ready to give your best. So invest in yourself, today and always. Set aside time for something that brings you peace and puts your mind back in order. Remember, There is no strong mind in a tired body. The two walk together. Taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Number 7. Not knowing how to set limits and say no. Have you ever been in that situation where you said yes, even though you really wanted to say no? Like when you're buying a car and you accept a service you didn't even need, just to avoid looking rude. It seems like a small thing, but this kind of attitude highlights a bigger problem: the difficulty of setting boundaries. When you can't refuse, you end up leaving room for others to take advantage of your goodwill. And this can happen in many different parts of life. It could be the partner who always puts their desires above yours, the boss who demands more than you can deliver, or the friend who just won't take no for an answer. Having no limits is like getting into a crowded elevator and squeezing yourself into a corner just to avoid disturbing others. The problem is that every yes you say against your will lowers your self-esteem, and you start to feel frustrated and hurt. Manipulative people spot these loopholes quickly. It's like someone who always cuts in line because they know no one will react. And little by little, you give in so much that you end up losing track of who you really are. Learning to set boundaries isn't rude. It's a way of taking care of yourself. Respect doesn't always come with time. Sometimes it needs to be shown from the beginning, especially with those who confuse kindness with weakness. Being firm is your first line of defense, and that doesn't mean being harsh or aggressive. It just means making it clear that your boundaries aren't open-ended. It's like running a marathon. You need to know when to speed up and when to slow down. Protecting your boundaries is just that, taking care of your energy and maintaining your balance. If you tend to shy away from conflict, think of it like adjusting the air conditioning. The temperature should be comfortable for you too, not just for others. Saying no may seem difficult in the moment, like turning off the TV before the end of your favorite show so you can sleep better. But that no is what ensures you wake up refreshed and stronger the next day. And if you know someone who keeps saying yes to everything, share this message with them. It could be the start of a big change. Number 8. Comparing yourself all the time. Few things drain more energy than constant comparison. It seems innocent, a simple sideways glance, an analysis of what the other person has, does, or has achieved. But little by little, it turns into a wound that never heals. A mind that constantly compares never rests. It's always in debt, always lacking, always believing that happiness resides in another body, another life, another time. Comparing yourself is a silent theft. Every time you measure yourself by someone else's standard, you surrender a piece of your peace. It's like trying to run a marathon while watching your neighbor's track. You stumble on your own path because you're too busy observing others. Comparison doesn't bring you closer to progress. It traps you in resentment. Stoic philosophers already warned, happiness is not in having more than someone else, but in needing less. Marcus Aurelius said that what disturbs man is not the things themselves, but the opinion he has of them. And comparison is a distorted opinion, a lens that magnifies the other's brilliance and dims your own. You don't see the struggle, the sacrifice, or the cost of what you envy. You see only the result, and you judge your backstage by the stage of others. Constant comparison creates a cruel illusion that you're behind. But behind in relation to what? Life isn't a race to the finish line, it's an individual journey. Everyone moves at different paces, directions, and times. Success, beauty, intelligence, all of these change shape depending on how you look at them. And when you compare yourself, you miss the chance to become what you could be, trying to be what you were never meant to be. The problem with comparison is that it turns what could be inspiration into poison. When you see someone else achieving something, you have two options: learn or diminish yourself. The first path strengthens you, the second paralyzes you. The envious mind is the same one that sabotages itself, believing that another's success is proof of its own inadequacy. But the Stoic understands that nothing another does takes away from your worth. Someone else's brilliance doesn't dim yours, it simply shows how much light there is in the world. Seneca said that no man is unhappy because of what others have, but because he forgets what he already has. Comparison is born of ingratitude. When you look too much outward, you lose sight of what's within. You forget how much you've grown, the battles you've overcome, and the strength that brought you this far. Focusing on others is a distraction from your own journey. The comparative mind is like a cracked mirror. It distorts everything it reflects. And the more you look, the more confused you feel. To break this cycle, you need to turn your gaze inward. Ask yourself, what can I improve about myself today? Not to be better than someone else, but to be more whole, more lucid, more true to yourself. Progress isn't an external race, it's an internal elevation. Comparison is a form of ingratitude disguised as self-criticism. It saps creative energy, because where there's envy, there's no focus. And without focus, life fragments. It's impossible to build something solid while looking in all directions. Freedom begins when you understand that the other person isn't a reference, they're merely a reflection, a reminder that different paths also lead to growth. The mind that seeks comparison is trapped in the ego. The one that seeks evolution is connected to wisdom. And the Stoic learns the difference. The ego wants to win, the wise man wants to grow. Winning is looking outward, growing is looking inward. If you want to regain your energy, stop measuring yourself by other people's progress. Be inspired, but don't be enslaved. Observe, but don't diminish yourself. Life isn't demanding that you be better than anyone else. It's just inviting you to be the best version of yourself. When the mind stops asking, why am I not like him, and starts asking, how can I be more me? Comparison dissolves, and in its place is born something stronger, authenticity. And that's where true peace begins, when you understand that the only mirror you need to adjust is that of your own consciousness. Number 9, escape from loneliness. Running away from loneliness is one of the most destructive and most common habits of modern life. We live surrounded by people, but we're rarely present. We seek noise, movement, distraction, anything that keeps us from being alone with our own thoughts. Loneliness is frightening because deep down, it reveals what we spend our days trying to avoid: the emptiness, the doubts, the fears, and the questions that the noise of the world keeps hidden. But the truth is that no one becomes strong by running away from themselves. Solitude, when understood, is not a punishment. It's a mirror. It's in solitude that you discover who you truly are, without the masks that social interaction demands. The man who cannot bear to be alone is a man who has not yet learned to know himself. Marcus Aurelius said, "Retreat within yourself. No refuge is more peaceful." He understood that inner silence is the field where clarity is born. Escaping loneliness is often the root of many other vices. Those who can't stand their own silence seek out noise, social media, empty conversations, superficial relationships, overwork. All of this is a disguised attempt to avoid facing what hurts. But what isn't faced grows, and what is faced transforms. When you stop and stay silent, the initial discomfort is just the first step toward a deeper peace. Seneca said that loneliness is not being alone, but being in bad company, including with oneself. And that's exactly it. The problem isn't external isolation, it's internal distance. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone, because true loneliness is the result of being disconnected from your own soul. Modern society has turned noise into anesthesia. We live in a time where the constant presence of stimuli, sounds, screens, opinions, prevents the most important encounter, the encounter with oneself. And when the mind has no respite, the spirit weakens. Solitude is the necessary interval for rebirth. It is the space between what you were and what you can become. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you don't need anything external to be at peace. Solitude is the test of this freedom. When you feel comfortable in your own company, no one can control you with promises, praise, or rejection. Other people's approval loses its power, and silence becomes shelter, not threat. Running away from solitude is wasting the chance to listen to yourself. It's in solitude that you realize what truly matters, what is noise and what is essence. Time alone cleanses the mental field. It removes the excess, reveals the essential. It's like the sea at low tide. Only when the water recedes do you see the bottom. However, it takes courage to remain alone. Silence confronts, emptiness challenges. It forces you to see what you don't want to see, your insecurities, your regrets, your contradictions, but it is in this confrontation that maturity is born. It is there that self-knowledge deepens and inner strength is built. Solitude is a laboratory of the soul. It is where ideas are honed, wounds are healed, and decisions that change destinies are formed. Every great thinker, artist, or leader has learned to transform isolation into a source of clarity. Time alone is not time wasted. It is time invested. So instead of running away, embrace solitude like a silent master. Walk with it, sit with it, listen to what it has to say. The discomfort you feel is just the inner noise quieting down, and after this silence comes lucidity, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone, the kind that returns you to yourself. In the end, those who learn to be alone never feel alone again. Because you discover that true companionship doesn't come from outside. It comes from the peace of being whole within. And if you're enjoying the content, consider becoming a member of the channel. In addition to helping the channel, you also get exclusive content. Click on the link in the description and become a member right now. Back to the content. Number 10. Wasting time minding other people's business. Have you ever noticed how much time you waste trying to fix other people's lives? It's as if every minute spent on this is a little piece of your own time slipping through your fingers. The strangest thing is that this often seems like a good thing, like it's helping, but in reality it's just a way to escape what really matters: your own growth. While you worry about judging mistakes, criticizing choices, and overthinking other people's paths, your life remains stagnant, forgotten at the back of the line. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to comment on other people's failures than to face your own fears? Watching other people's lives is easy. It doesn't require courage, but it also doesn't bring any results. While you point your finger at someone, you are standing in the same place without taking a step forward. This habit is deceiving because it gives the impression that you have control or that you are better than others. But in the end, it leaves you lost, without direction and without progress. It's like trying to empty a leaky boat with a glass while watching others sail towards their dreams. Every second you spend worrying about other people's lives is a second that could be used to build your own. You have the power to decide where you put your energy and attention. So focus on what can really change your life. The world will keep turning whether you criticize it or not, and in the end, what really counts is not how much you observed others, but how much you dedicated yourself to growing and becoming a better person. Number 11. Anxiety, the habit that's wearing you down. Have you ever stopped to think about how many things slip through your fingers? This is one of the most important lessons we all need to understand. We can't have control over everything, and it's precisely from this impossible attempt that anxiety is born. That constant impulse to try to hold on to what was never ours to hold. Today, according to the World Health Organization, around 10% of people on the planet face some type of emotional problem. This means that more than 720 million people struggle daily with thoughts and feelings that hurt them inside. And anxiety is one of the biggest villains in this battle. Thoughts like, will I do well on my presentation? Will my relationship work out? Or when will my proposal arrive? Seem simple, but they have the same thing in common. They're all tied to the future and the things we can't control. This way of thinking creates an endless cycle of fear and worry. Anxiety is like trying to control other cars on a busy highway. Impossible, exhausting, and frustrating. In life, just like in traffic, the secret is to keep your eyes only on what depends on you, your actions, your decisions, and your attitude. Only then is it possible to feel true peace and a real sense of security. When anxiety takes over, the body responds. The heart races, breathing becomes shallow, hands sweat, muscles tense. But these are all just the visible signs. The problem lies deeper, in the fear of the unknown and the attempt to control what is uncertain. For the Stoics, anxiety was a strong and dangerous emotion, capable of taking over the mind if not faced consciously. It can stop you from taking action, rob you of your courage, and cause real suffering. Overcoming anxiety isn't just about realizing what triggers it, but understanding what's behind it. Think of anxiety as a tree. If you want to change the fruits, you need to take care of the roots. Treating only the symptoms is like cutting branches without caring for the soil. The result may look good for a while, but it doesn't last. Just as a tree needs firm roots to grow, our mind needs a strong emotional foundation to flourish. Life becomes harder when we ignore our own inner roots. In any forest, what sustains what you see is what is hidden on the ground. There is no point in trying to change just what appears, the fruits, if we do not take care of what makes them grow. When the roots are healthy, everything that grows is healthier and more balanced. So when anxiety hits you, stop and ask, why am I feeling this way? Do I really have the power to change this situation, or am I trying to control what I can't? Epictetus said, if something can be solved, there is no reason to worry. And if you can't, worrying is useless. Understanding this brings clarity and helps us focus on what really matters. Anxiety almost never helps us. Most of the time, it prevents us from living calmly. As Seneca wrote, unhappy is the spirit that lives in fear of tomorrow. Maybe now is the time to let go of the desire to control everything. Look at what is within your reach, trust in time, and allow life to flow more lightly and naturally. Number 12. Fueling anger. Anger is a strong emotion that seems to give you power, but it is actually a hidden enemy. It arrives suddenly, full of energy, as if it were going to help you act, but it soon takes over you and takes you away from your best self. It's like lighting a fire in a closed room. At first there's heat, but soon smoke fills the room and it starts to suffocate. Stoic philosophers have always warned, anger is among the most dangerous emotions there is. It blinds you, steals your control, and pushes you to act without thinking. Instead of solving the problem, it ends up making everything worse. Some people even use anger as a force to achieve things, but the price is high. It drains your strength and leaves you exhausted inside. The more you lean on it, the more attached to it you become. Anger poisons everything around you, your mind, your body, and your relationships. Using it as a driving force is dangerous because, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, hate is too great a weight to bear. Anger is the same, heavy, suffocating, and destroys your mental clarity. Marcus Aurelius also remembered that the consequences of anger are worse than the causes that awaken it. It's not the problem that brings you down, but how you react to it. And anger always pushes you in the wrong direction. When you make a mistake in your diet, it's what makes you eat even more. When money is tight, it's irritation that leads you to spend what you can't afford, trying to ease the pain. Therefore, it is essential to learn how to break this cycle. When something bad happens, take a deep breath and wait before reacting. This little pause could be what saves your peace and gives you back control of your actions. Swap anger for clarity. In the end, what shows your true strength is not how much you shout, but how calmly you remain and act wisely. Number 13. Resist inevitable change. Resisting change is like trying to hold the wind in your hands. The more you push, the faster it escapes. Yet many spend their lives fighting against what is natural, the flow of time, the end of cycles, the inevitable transformations that shape the human path. We want things to stay as they are, for people to remain the same, for plans to follow the script. But life never promised stability, it promised movement. And those who insist on clinging to what was suffer the weight of resistance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is transformation, life is opinion." He understood that suffering arises not from change, but from the attempt to prevent it. Nature changes at every moment. Day turns to night, heat turns to cold, the body ages, bonds transform. Nothing is permanent. And this impermanence is not punishment. It is the very rhythm of existence. The problem is that human beings, in trying to control the uncontrollable, create an invisible prison for themselves, fear of the new. Resistance to change is a disguised form of fear of loss, of error, of the unknown. We want security, but we confuse security with immobility. but what doesn't change rots. Think of stagnant water. Over time, it ceases to be a spring and becomes mud. It's the same with the mind. When you refuse to change, you stop growing, and what was once stable becomes stagnation. Epictetus said that a free man is one who adapts to what life brings. And this is one of the most difficult lessons of Stoicism, accepting transience as part of destiny. The Stoic is not someone cold in the face of change. He is lucid. He understands that nothing truly belongs to him, not possessions, not people, not certainties. Everything that comes to teach. Everything that goes because it has fulfilled its purpose. Resisting this is like trying to stop the tide from rising. The pain of change comes not from what changes, but from clinging to what should have been left behind. A relationship that ended, a phase of life that passed, a role that no longer fits. Suffering begins when we insist on reliving what life has already ended. Seneca said that everything that is born must die, everything that begins must end. And there is wisdom in this simple observation. It invites us to participate in the flow of life, not fight against it. Accepting change is an act of courage. It requires letting go of control and trusting the process. It's not giving up, it's maturing. It's looking at what has been with gratitude and what will come with serenity. It's understanding that each ending carries the beginning of something new, even if we can't yet see it. When you learn to flow with transitions, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a river. And the river, even though it changes shape, never stops moving forward. Resistance to the new is tiring because it requires energy to sustain what no longer exists. It's like trying to keep a door locked while the house moves. Acceptance, on the other hand, liberates. When you let go, life resumes its natural rhythm, and what seemed like chaos begins to make sense. Inevitable changes are not enemies, they are silent teachers. They show you what still needs strengthening, what can be left behind, and how much you trust in your own strength. True wisdom lies not in stopping the wind, but in adjusting the sails. Ultimately, resisting change is resisting life itself. Everything changes. Your body, time, relationships, priorities. The only thing that remains is movement. When you understand this, you begin to walk lightly. You stop carrying the weight of what was and learn to dance with what is. Because those who learn to change with life are never dragged along by it. But there is something important to understand. If you have been trying for a long time to get out of your comfort zone and learn more, but you still haven't managed to do so, there may be something you are not aware of. I know what it could be. It is anxiety. Anxiety is like a snake that comes silently and affects you without you realizing it. It makes you feel bad for days, months, and even years. Living like this is like being sick all the time. But I know a solution. The Stoic philosophers, together with modern psychology, have a way to help you get rid of this. I myself managed to cure myself of this anxiety. I made a video explaining how you can get rid of this evil, and it is in the first comment. Click on the link in the first comment and start curing yourself of this feeling of anxiety. Number 14. Constantly complaining. Complaining is one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage. At first glance, it seems like just a way to vent, lighten the burden of the day, or share frustrations. But little by little, this habit turns into an invisible prison, a mental pattern that weakens the mind and drains vital energy. Complaining is like leaving a faucet running. Every word spoken without awareness drains away a bit of your inner strength. Complaining is the opposite of responsibility. When you complain, you're telling the world, I have no power over what happens to me. And the more you repeat this, the more your mind believes it. It's a dangerous cycle. Energy that could be used to change something is wasted reinforcing what bothers you. It's like staring at a fire and lamenting the heat when you could simply leave or get water to put it out. The Stoics viewed complaining as a form of emotional weakness. Epictetus taught that suffering comes not from facts, but from our interpretation of them. Complaining, therefore, is insisting on viewing reality from the perspective of helplessness. And this doesn't mean denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It means understanding that there's a difference between acknowledging a problem and feeding it with one's own voice. The former creates awareness, the latter creates exhaustion. Every time you complain, you position yourself as a victim, and the victim is someone who has relinquished their own power. When the mind becomes accustomed to this role, it begins to seek reasons to confirm its own powerlessness. Everything seems difficult, unfair, or out of reach. The chronic complainer becomes a magnet for pessimism. They attract like-minded people and repel those who could help them grow. Seneca said that man is unhappy because he forgets that he can endure everything. When you stop complaining, you discover something few realize. The simple act of accepting and acting transforms pain into strength. The energy previously spent talking becomes clarity. Suddenly, what seemed like a burden reveals itself as an exercise in endurance, and the mind strengthens. Complaining is easy because it doesn't require courage. Taking action does. A lazy mind complains to postpone action. A disciplined mind observes, understands, and responds with action. A day without complaining is more powerful than a week of promises. It is in this silence of self-mastery that serenity is born. Try a simple test. Go 24 hours without complaining, not out loud, not in your mind. Observe what happens. You'll begin to realize how automatic this impulse was, how accustomed your body was to vibrating at the frequency of dissatisfaction. And at the same time, you'll notice something surprising. Your surroundings change. People seem less irritating, problems less burdensome, and your mind lighter. The world doesn't have to be perfect for you to be grateful. It just needs to be real, and you need to be present. The Stoic knows that every adversity brings a hidden lesson, and that true power lies in not wasting energy on what you can't change. When you choose to be grateful instead of complaining, you exchange the stance of one who suffers for one who builds. Complaining is noise. Gratitude is strength. And strength isn't ignoring difficulties. It's facing them with a firm mind, without getting lost in useless words. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes the color of the thoughts it harbors. If your thoughts are complaints, your life will reflect fatigue. If they are awareness and purpose, your energy will become power. From today on, every time you feel like complaining, turn that impulse into a question. What can I do about this? This simple shift in focus changes everything. Because inner peace isn't born when the world becomes lighter, but when you learn to carry the weight in silence and still move forward with dignity and calm. Number 15. Procrastinating important decisions. Putting off what needs to be done is one of the most subtle and dangerous ways to sabotage yourself. Procrastination isn't just laziness, it's fear disguised as waiting. It's the desire to maintain comfort for a few more moments, even if it costs you dearly later. Every decision you postpone accumulates an invisible weight on your mind, and without realizing it, you carry the burden of what wasn't done, what was avoided, and what was left for later, that imaginary place where life seems easier but never truly arrives. Procrastinating important decisions is like leaving doors open in a house during a storm. The wind blows in, the cold takes over, and little by little chaos sets in. Your mind loses clarity because it's constantly trying to deal with what's pending. And the worst part is that even when you're still, you get tired. Constantly thinking about what you should have done consumes more energy than actually doing it. The Stoics saw procrastination as an enemy of the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death watches you. While you live, while you can, become good." He wasn't talking about fear. He was talking about conscious urgency. Time is the most valuable resource there is, and every decision postponed is a slice of it wasted. Procrastination is also a form of delusion. You postpone, believing that in the future you'll be more prepared, calmer, and more confident. But the truth is, the future doesn't bring preparation. Action does. Waiting to feel ready is like waiting for the sea to calm before learning to swim. The Stoic knows that courage doesn't come before the act, it comes during it. Behind procrastination, there's always a fear, the fear of making a mistake, of being judged, of regretting it. But avoiding a decision doesn't eliminate fear. It fuels it. With each day you put it off, the problem grows, takes shape, and takes root. What could be solved in an hour becomes a shadow that haunts you for weeks, and this shadow saps your energy, focus, and tranquility. Seneca said, "While we postpone, life passes us by." And that's exactly what procrastination does. It steals the now. You think you're saving energy, but you're wasting vitality. Because the mind that postpones doesn't rest. It blames itself. It keeps mentally repeating what needs to be done, and this cycle drains strength and hope. The antidote is simple yet powerful: deciding. Even if the decision isn't perfect, movement is what restores balance. Clarity comes with walking, not waiting. Epictetus said that we don't control the outcome, only the choices. This means that deciding isn't about guaranteeing success, it's about affirming direction. Think about how many opportunities have passed you by because you hesitated. A conversation that could have changed a relationship, a project that could have started sooner, an apology that could have healed something. Indecision is a form of silent loss. It snuffs out opportunities before they even exist. Making decisions isn't easy, but it's liberating. Even when we make mistakes, we learn. Even when we fall, we move forward with greater awareness. Indecision, on the other hand, is stagnant ground. Nothing thrives where doubt takes root. The Stoic learns to act based on reason, not impulse, but he also doesn't allow himself to be paralyzed by endless analysis. He ponders, decides, and follows through. Because he understands that living is choosing, and not choosing is also a choice, often the worst one. So, the next time you feel the weight of indecision, remember, the cost of not acting is always greater than the risk of making a mistake. Deciding is an act of quiet courage. It's telling the world that you choose to be the protagonist of your own story. There is no perfect moment. There is now. And now is the only real time you have to transform thought into movement and intention into life. Number 16. Living without purpose. Living without purpose is like sailing on a sea without a compass. You move, but you don't know where you're going. Time passes, days repeat themselves, and the feeling of emptiness grows silently. Waking up, working, paying bills, relaxing and sleeping may seem normal, but without meaning behind it all, life loses color. The body moves, but the soul slumbers. And this slumber is what slowly destroys inner strength. When purpose is lacking, effort loses value. Everything feels heavy, tiring, and directionless. You may even achieve small victories, but they don't fulfill you because they don't stem from something that truly moves you. It's like climbing a ladder and realizing at the top that it was leaning against the wrong wall. The human mind needs a why. Without it, any how becomes unbearable. The Stoic philosophers knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's life is what his thoughts make it. And thoughts without direction generate a meaningless existence. Purpose isn't an external goal, it's an internal clarity, a guiding light that helps you endure chaos, pain, and uncertainty. When you know why you act, suffering becomes fuel. When you don't, even comfort becomes suffocating. Seneca said that he who does not know to which port he is sailing, no wind is favorable. This is more than a metaphor. It's a reminder that without purpose, life becomes a drifting boat, pushed by the currents of opinions, fashions, and the desires of others. You begin to live according to what the world expects, rather than what your soul demands. You work for recognition, love out of need, speak to be noticed. But deep down, something is always missing. Living without purpose is dangerous because it feels comfortable. It's the kind of apathy that disguises itself as routine. You fulfill your obligations, smile in photos, make superficial plans, but feel like something essential is missing. It's a slight but constant pain, the pain of not being whole anywhere, and the more you try to fill that void with distractions, the more it grows. Purpose isn't a distant dream or a grand mission, it's the meaning you give to what you do now. It can be found in small acts, caring for someone, creating something, serving with excellence, becoming a better person. Purpose is what transforms the ordinary into the meaningful. The difference between boredom and satisfaction lies in the intention with which you live. The Stoics called this living in harmony with nature, acting in accordance with reason and with the highest human duty to evolve. Living with purpose is aligning what you think, feel, and do. It's asking yourself every day, why am I doing this? Does this bring me closer or further away from who I want to be? The answers to these questions are the map that guides you through the chaos. Without purpose, time becomes an enemy. With purpose, it becomes an ally. Because each day becomes meaningful even when it's difficult. A purposeful mind doesn't shy away from challenges. It uses them as stepping stones. It doesn't get lost in the noise of the world because it knows what it's seeking within itself. The absence of purpose isn't a lack of ability, it's a lack of listening. Purpose isn't found outside, it's rediscovered within when you silence fear, comparisons, and external expectations. It's found in what awakens you, what makes you feel alive, what calls you to act with courage. Living without purpose is like living on autopilot. Living with purpose is being awake. It's looking at what you do and knowing that in some way you're contributing to something greater, even if it's just being an example of someone who lives truthfully. Ask yourself today, what makes my time worthwhile? If the answer comes clear, follow it. If it comes unclear, be silent until you hear it. Because while many seek pleasure, few seek meaning. And it is meaning that keeps the soul alight when everything else fades. Number 17. Talking too much about your own plans. Talking too much about what hasn't happened yet is one of the most silent ways to lose energy. Every time you articulate a plan out loud, some of the energy that should be used to carry it out is dissipated. It's like opening a pot before the food is ready. Steam escapes, heat is lost, and the result takes longer to materialize. The urge to talk about what's coming seems harmless, but it's actually a trap of the ego which seeks recognition before achievement. There's an immediate pleasure in talking about one's projects, a sense of anticipated accomplishment. The brain confuses speech with action, and for a moment you feel as if you've already accomplished something. But the problem is that, after that, real motivation wanes. The mind, deluded by the feeling of progress, relaxes, and what was once a promise becomes another abandoned idea. The Stoics viewed silence as one of the pillars of wisdom. Epictetus said, "Let your actions speak for you." This simple phrase contains one of the greatest lessons of inner discipline. Power lies in doing, not in announcing. When you keep your plans to yourself, they mature in silence. They grow with focus, free from the interference of doubt and the opinions of others. Talking too much about what hasn't yet come to fruition also exposes you to external energies, criticism, envy, expectations. Even unintentionally, every word shared creates space for others to offer opinions, question, and discourage you, and often these opinions infiltrate your mind, sowing uncertainties that previously didn't exist. What was once a clear dream begins to blur with the fear of not living up to expectations. Seneca warned, "The more one talks about what one is going to do, the less one does it." And he was right. Talking is a waste of vital energy, and when used excessively, it becomes noise. True progress happens in silence, in invisible effort, in the hours when no one is looking. The greatest transformations arise when you work silently, but with determination. Talking too much also reveals an unconscious need for validation. When you share your plans, you seek approval. You want to hear that you're right, that it will work out, that you're capable, but this habit makes you dependent on external gaze. The strength that should come from internal conviction becomes dependent on the praise of others. And all external dependence is fragility. The wise man learns to protect what is valuable. He understands that there are times when silence is required, not out of fear but out of strategy. Just as a gardener covers his seeds until they are ready to see the sun, you must protect your plans until they are strong enough to face the world. Silence, in this case, is not a secret. It is nourishment. There's power in surprising the world with results instead of promises. When you act quietly, The impact is greater because focus is maintained. Words create expectations, actions create legacy, and legacy is what remains when the noise subsides. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is done with intention and discretion is most lasting." Silence is not the absence of movement. It is the space where purpose matures. While the talkative seeks applause, the disciplined seeks progress. And when the two meet on the same path, the latter always arrives first. The next time you feel like sharing your plans, take a breath and remember. The right time to speak is after the results speak for themselves. Until then, work silently, with humility and consistency. Let your actions echo louder than your words, because plans grow best when they germinate in the soil of discretion and blossom when the world least expects them. Number 18. Repressing emotions instead of understanding them. Repressing your feelings is like trying to keep a river trapped inside a glass. For a while it seems to work. You believe you're in control, you feel strong, rational, above your emotions, but the harder you try to hold it in, the more pressure builds inside, until inevitably the glass breaks. And when that happens, what escapes isn't calm, it's chaos. We live in a culture that confuses balance with indifference. Many believe that being emotionally strong means not showing what you feel. But that's not strength, it's escape. True strength lies in recognizing what's going on inside you, naming your feelings and learning from them. A Stoic is not someone who doesn't feel, but someone who feels and still chooses to act wisely. Seneca said, "Nothing is more miserable than he who thinks himself too wise to feel." Repressed suffering doesn't disappear, it transforms. Sometimes it turns into constant irritation, impatience, fatigue. Other times, it disguises itself as distractions, food, work, social media, anything that keeps you from looking inward. But ignoring pain isn't the same as healing it. It's just pushing it back, where it grows in the darkness. Emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. They show what needs attention, what is out of alignment, what calls for change. Repressing anger, for example, doesn't eliminate it. It merely pushes it into a corner where it ferments, waiting for the right moment to explode. Sadness, when not welcomed, becomes apathy, and fear, when not understood, becomes anxiety. What is denied internally always returns, but in the form of imbalance. Epictetus taught that we don't control what we feel immediately, but we do control what we do with it. This is the difference between repressing and understanding. To repress is to deny the existence of the feeling. To understand is to observe it without allowing it to dominate you. It's to say, yes, I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm sad, and still remain in control of your own actions. Repressing emotions is what creates the distance between who you are and who you show yourself to be. And this distance, when it grows, turns into emptiness. It's the reason so many people live exhausted without understanding why. Carrying unexpressed emotions is like walking around all day with a clenched fist. The body tires, the mind closes, and the spirit loses its lightness. The Stoics practiced what they called prosos, constant self-attention. It was a form of serene, non-judgmental self-observation. It wasn't about fighting emotions, but using them as tools for self-knowledge. Anger shows what you haven't yet mastered. Fear shows where you lack faith. Sadness shows what needs to be left behind. Understanding emotions is an act of courage because it requires vulnerability. It's looking within without masks and accepting that we're not always okay, and that it's okay not to be. Only those who allow themselves to feel deeply are capable of truly transforming themselves, because what is repressed imprisons you, what is understood liberates you. Inner strength is not born of denial, but of integration. It is the balance between feeling and choosing, between embracing and acting. It is the peace of those who have learned that emotions are not storms to be avoided, but waves to be navigated. The next time something hurts you, don't try to suffocate the emotion, breathe with it. Observe what it wants to teach you. The inner silence that comes from this listening is different from the silence of repression. One destroys, the other heals, because understanding your feelings is the first step to governing your mind. and whoever governs their mind governs their life. Number 19. Wanting to please everyone. Trying to please everyone is one of the most subtle ways to lose yourself. At first glance, it seems noble. You want to be kind, avoid conflict, maintain harmony. But behind this appearance lies an invisible prison, the prison of approval. Every time you shape what you say, do, or think just to be accepted, a piece of your identity is erased. And little by little, you become a reflection of others rather than your own voice. The need to please stems from a deep fear, the fear of rejection. This fear makes you over-adapt, over-compromise, until you no longer know where goodwill ends and submission begins. It's like trying to balance several plates at once. While ensuring they all stand, you end up breaking what matters most, your own integrity. The Stoics understood the danger of seeking approval. Epictetus said, "If you want to progress, accept being considered foolish and senseless by those who do not understand your purpose." This phrase sums up what few have the courage to experience, the freedom not to please. Because pleasing everyone is impossible, and trying to do so is wasting energy that could be used to grow, create, and live authentically. Those who try to please everyone live tired lives. They spend the day calculating their words, avoiding disappointment, smiling when they want to remain silent. The problem is that this forced kindness exacts a high price: emptiness. You begin to feel invisible within your own life, like an actor playing roles written by others. In the end, you discover you've pleased everyone except yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the soul becomes unhappy when it submits to what does not depend on it. The opinions of others are one of those things. You can be the kindest, the fairest, the most caring, and there will still be those who criticize. There will always be those who dislike, who misunderstand, who judge without knowing. Seeking to please is fighting a war that never ends, a war where there is no victory, only attrition. Pleasing everyone is also a form of self-deception. You believe you're being kind, when in fact you're seeking acceptance. The difference between empathy and submission is simple. Empathy respects both sides. Submission erases one. Being kind doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. Being kind doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Seneca said that those who live to please others lose themselves in the process. True respect arises when you have the courage to be firm without being cruel, clear without being aggressive, truthful without being arrogant. People may not like what you say, but they will respect the fact that you live consistently. There's a peace that only exists when you stop trying to be everything to everyone. It's the relief of finally being whole for yourself. When you allow yourself to disappoint others, you discover something liberating. The world keeps turning. People move on with their lives, and you remain who you are, lighter, truer, freer. Living your life trying to please others is a form of disrespect for your own soul, because every yes you say against your will is a no to your well-being. Saying no isn't selfish, it's maturity. It's the recognition that your energy is limited and must be used wisely. The next time you feel the urge to please to avoid discomfort, stop and ask yourself, am I doing this out of kindness or fear? If the answer is fear, choose silence, choose boundaries, choose truth. Because respect from others may be fleeting, but self-respect is what sustains you when the whole world falls silent. After all, those who seek to please everyone end up pleasing no one, and those who seek to be true to themselves ultimately attract what is true: people, paths, and peace. Number 20. Ignore small vices. What seems like a simple pleasure today can easily become an addiction that takes over your life without you realizing it. The danger is not only in the custom itself, but in the illusion that you have control. You start by drinking a cup of coffee to wake up, until you realize you can't get through the day without it. The same goes for cell phones. You pick it up just to reply to a message, and within seconds you're lost in notifications, videos, and comments. Suddenly, an hour has passed, and your attention has been completely sucked away. These little impulses seem innocent, but little by little they steal your freedom. The more you feed these desires, the harder it becomes to resist them. You may think you're in control of the situation, but if you can't walk away, it's a sign that something stronger is already in control. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you felt like you lost control? Epictetus said that whoever wants to be free needs to detach themselves from what depends on others. And addiction is just that, an invisible owner but present in every decision. Addiction begins the moment you lose the power to say no. It could be sugar, soda, cigarettes, pornography addiction, the constant search for relaxation, or even the desire to be accepted by others. In all these cases, what is lost is clarity and self-control. Seneca said that the first step to healing is wanting to be healed, and that requires effort and attention. Ask yourself now, could you live without these dependencies for a while? A month without sugar, without picking up your phone all the time, without seeking distractions to escape something you're feeling. These challenges show whether you are still the master of your will or whether you are being guided by it. True freedom is being able to choose without being driven by impulse. You decide, do you want to strengthen your mind and be free or remain trapped in the habits that control you? Never forget, the worst form of prison is the one we create for ourselves. Seneca once said, "Show me someone who is not a slave. One is a slave to desire, another to power, and all to some fear." The choice is yours. Continue feeding your addiction or regain control of your life. Number 21. Reliving the past over and over again. Reliving the past is like trying to walk while looking only in the rearview mirror. You move forward, but you stumble over everything in front of you. And in the end, you're still stuck in the same place, tired, confused, and feeling like nothing's changing. It's natural to look back from time to time. After all, that's where the lessons that shaped who we are came from. But turning memories into a home is like choosing to live in a dark room, surrounded by ghosts that only exist because you still feed them. The past, when revisited too often, ceases to be memory and becomes a prison. How many times have you found yourself mentally replaying a scene, a conversation, a choice that can no longer be changed? It's like trying to rewrite a story whose paper has already been burned. Every memory laden with guilt, resentment, or regret is an invisible anchor that traps the mind and drains vital energy. Marcus Aurelius said, "Every man's life is what his thoughts make of it." And when your thoughts are stuck in what has already happened, life stops with them. What hurts isn't the past itself, it's the attachment to it. Suffering is the result of wishing something had been different. It's the what if that never ends, the internal dialogue that insists on correcting what is already over. Seneca warned that people are tormented more by what they imagine than by what actually happens. Reliving the past is exactly that, an imaginary torment. Every time you revisit a pain, your brain reacts as if you were experiencing it again. Your body feels it, your heart races, your mind is agitated. What was once a memory becomes a new wound. And so the past repeats itself, not because it returned, but because you call it back every day. Some people confuse memory with identity. They believe that without their pain, they wouldn't know who they are. But the past isn't a home, it's a school. You go through it to learn, not to remain. And learning only happens when there's enough emotional distance to look back on what was with serenity, without getting lost in what you felt. Epictetus said that suffering arises not from things, but from the opinions we form about them. When you revisit the past with resentment, you add layers of judgment and guilt that prevent you from seeing what's valuable there. Every event, no matter how difficult, carries something that can make you wiser, if you have the courage to let go of the pain and keep only the lesson. Reliving the past is also a way of escaping the present. It's easier to hide in what has already happened than to face what's right in front of you now. But life only exists in the present moment. It's here, in this very moment, that you have the power to act, change, forgive, and start over. No regret changes what happened, but a new attitude changes what will come. Stoicism teaches that time is the most precious commodity because it's the only thing that never returns. Spending it dwelling on what was is wasting the chance to experience what still can be. The past needs to be respected, but not venerated. It has served its purpose. What it had to say, it has already said. Now, it's up to you to continue the dialogue, with life, not with memories. Every time you feel the urge to revisit what's left behind, stop and ask yourself, does this still serve my growth, or is it just a painful habit? If it's just pain, be grateful for the lesson and move on. Because peace isn't found in changing the past, but in accepting it as part of your path. When you stop reliving what's already over, something new begins to emerge within you. Space for the new, for the light, for what truly matters. The past was the ground that shaped you, but not the ceiling that limits you. Honoring what you've experienced means moving forward with greater wisdom and not continuing to circle the same memory. The past is a teacher, not a jailer. Learn from it and then close the door. Because while you look back, life, silent and patient, continues to wait for you here, in the present. Number 22. Insecurity. The habit of doubting yourself is like an invisible brake. Insecurity not only delays your plans and keeps you from a more fulfilling life, it also clutters your mind. It's like trying to drive with the handbrake on. No matter how hard you accelerate, the car seems to stay put. You feel stuck, unable to move forward. Fear, when it takes over, turns even the simplest things into towering mountains. It paralyzes you, makes you doubt your own worth, and convinces you that you're incapable, even when the task is small. Seneca warned, when we let fear rule, there's no limit to the damage it can cause. You know that tightness in your chest that prevents you from taking action. Overcoming it requires courage. But courage isn't about living without fear. It's about facing it head-on, even when your heart is racing. Think about someone going into a job interview. Nervousness is normal, but courage is about shaking hands firmly and speaking calmly, even when your stomach is churning. Courage acts as a shield that prevents fear from overcoming you. Imagine a student who has to present a paper in front of the class. They may be trembling inside, but they still choose to stand up and speak. This is the true power of courage. Every small gesture of confidence strengthens the soul. Speaking your mind, acting even when you're in doubt and not letting fear decide for you, all of this is training. Fear changes the size of things. It makes a small obstacle seem like a wall. The fear of making mistakes, for example, prevents us from trying, from growing, from learning. Think of a leader who doesn't make decisions for fear of criticism. They end up blocking the team and missing good opportunities. It's the same with us. If we don't try, we'll never discover what we're made of. The greatest enemy is almost never outside, but within. Overcoming self-doubt is the most difficult challenge. That's why it's so important to strengthen your confidence every day, even with small gestures. Within each person lies a silent fortress, a safe space where nothing can touch what is most true within us. Marcus Aurelius said, "Things cannot reach the soul." So don't let your insecurities dim your light. When fear arises, face it. The more you practice courage, the easier it becomes to believe in yourself and act firmly, no matter what the situation. Number 23. Ignore the body. Ignoring the body is one of the most subtle and destructive mistakes anyone can make. We live in an age that values the mind, productivity, and quick thinking, but forgets the temple that sustains it all, the body. We try to beat fatigue with coffee, mask stress with medication, hide exhaustion with automatic smiles. But the body never lies. It warns before it breaks down. It whispers in the form of pain, insomnia, and lack of energy. And when it's not heard, it screams. Seneca said that the body is the servant of the soul, but even a servant needs care to continue serving. The body is the vehicle of the mind. If it weakens, so does thought. There is no mental clarity in an exhausted body. There is no inner peace in an inflamed organism. Stoic wisdom has always seen the body as an essential part of virtue. Caring for it is not vanity, it is responsibility. Most people don't realize how neglecting their bodies affects their emotions and clarity. They sleep little, eat whatever they want, sit all day, and then wonder why they feel anxious, sad, or lacking energy. The body speaks the language of imbalance, aches and pains that won't go away, shortness of breath, a fuzzy mind, constant irritation. These are signs that something is out of whack. The Roman philosopher Epictetus said that a wise man takes care of what is under his control, and the body is one of those things. You can't decide what others will do, but you can decide what you put on your plate, how much you move, how you breathe, and how long you sleep. Ignoring these small acts is a kind of silent disrespect to yourself. It's like driving a car without ever changing the oil and being shocked when the engine stops working. Taking care of your body isn't just about exercising or dieting. It's about creating a routine that supports your mind. It's about being present while eating, walking slowly, and breathing deeply when tension builds. It's about realizing that every physical gesture is also a spiritual gesture. When you stretch, rest, or eat well, you're saying to the universe, I honor the instrument that allows me to live. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, performed simple exercises every day. He knew that a trained body isn't vain, it's disciplined. Physical discipline is a reflection of inner discipline. Those who learn to care for their bodies also learn to care for their minds. After all, self-control begins with small choices: getting up early, eating what's necessary, avoiding excess. The body is the mirror of the soul. When there is chaos within, it manifests itself without. When there is harmony, it radiates vitality. And this connection is deeper than it seems. So a neglected body drags the mind down. A healthy body lifts the spirit. The energy you feel upon waking, the clarity of thought, the patience in dealing with others, all stem from the state of your body. The Stoics didn't separate body and mind. For them, virtue was balance, and there is no balance without physical presence. The body is the point of contact between the world and consciousness. It is through it that we feel, experience, and learn. To ignore it is to miss part of the human experience itself. If you want more mental strength, start with your physical strength. Sleep with purpose, eat mindfully, and move with gratitude. Not as a punishment, but as a way to honor the life that inhabits you. The body, when cared for, becomes a silent fortress, a shelter from the chaos of the world. Remember, your body doesn't demand perfection, just attention. It doesn't want you to idolize it, but to listen to it. It wants you to recognize its limits and respect its rhythms. Taking care of it is the first act of self-love, because a wise mind doesn't flourish in a neglected body. To ignore the body is to ignore one's own existence, and the price is high: drained energy, lost clarity, and a life devoid of vitality. The wise, on the other hand, understand that the body is the bridge between what they think and what they do. Therefore, they care for it as a gardener cares for the earth, knowing that it is from this soil that everything strong, beautiful, and lasting grows. Number 24. Learning something and not applying it. Imagine this scene. You're here, hanging on every word, thinking about everything you're hearing. But in the end, nothing changes. It's like buying a book full of delicious recipes, understanding every step, but never turning on the stove. The routine remains the same habits repeat themselves, and the same problems return. What's the point of seeking knowledge if it doesn't translate into action? Think of someone who buys a treadmill and leaves it gathering dust in the corner of the room. Knowledge only becomes power when it's put into practice. Feeling excited about an idea is simple. The hard part is taking action. It's like buying healthy fruits and vegetables and letting them spoil in the refrigerator because you never use them. True transformation requires action. No one can live for you, wake up early, study, or train for you. The responsibility is yours alone. If you don't act now, everything you've heard so far will be just empty noise. Taking control of your own life means stopping expecting others to do what only you can do. No athlete wins a medal by sending someone else to compete for them. The same goes for life. Without effort, there is no progress. So stop and think, are you just gathering nice ideas, or are you actually putting them into practice? Because without action, there is no growth, and those who don't grow weaken. It's like paying for a gym membership and never joining. You miss the chance to evolve, to live better. Marcus Aurelius said, "We can be better today, but we choose to put it off until tomorrow. And when we postpone, we reap what we fail to do." Those who don't spread light end up lost in their own shadow. So don't leave here the same way you came in. Take one idea, just one, and put it into practice today. Change begins the moment you act. Value your own efforts. They're what will take you forward.